She was the original it girl of the new millennium.
She was truly one of the first reality stars.
Can you put this in the microwave, Nicole?
The girl created the selfie.
That's hot.
She really exploded in a mass way.
Super lady.
She's also the first celebutante with a sex tape.
She felt that anvil fall on her.
And a criminal record.
A frank admission from Paris Hilton. She did have cocaine in her purse and lied about it.
This young, wealthy socialite branded as like this reckless party girl.
She's locked up as a teen.
The seclusion she endured and restraint.
Torn down by the media that built her up.
There was a lot of shaming going on.
Her poor parents.
There is no fame without pain.
But never count Paris Hilton out.
I mean, what the hell? She's Paris Hilton.
Paris is a trailblazer. She is the inspiration for Kim Kardashian and so many others.
She's a global superstar.
This is a girl that was so famous. You know, everyone wanted to know her. She was that new star that came out and literally dominated the headlines.
1981, New York's Upper East Side. Paris Hilton is born into privilege, an heir to the Hilton Hotel dynasty with one of the most recognizable names in the world. She's a prep school debutante and notorious party girl.
She was just this gorgeous socialite at every party, at every fashion show.
She is the camp, like, queen of dreams.
Until one night in 1997, she wakes up to two strange men standing by her bed.
If you're famous, I could only imagine you're thinking, well, my whole family's being taken. What on earth is happening?
As her neighbors on the Upper East Side sleep, 17-year-old Paris has no idea what's about to happen to her.
There's these two men in her bedroom. She doesn't know who they are. They blindfold her. They handcuff her. She did end up seeing her parents in the doorway at one point. They were not helping her.
Paris's parents had hired these men to take their daughter against her will to a facility for troubled teens.
She ended up at this for-profit residential facility in Provo, Utah. The troubled teen industry probably seemed like a perfect fit for the Hilton family. The magic fix to behavior that they didn't want to see ending up in the tabloids.
In fact, the facility was the opposite of that. Essentially, her parents sent her to jail.
Provo Canyon School being essentially a level 4 lockdown facility with electromagnetized doors that don't open unless somebody pushes a button. It is very, very real that you can't get out. So I was in Provo Canyon School from 1996 to 1998. We were roommates. So when Paris arrived, the staff were more strict and more unfair to her than they were to other people because of her social status. The staff from the very beginning hated her. They took away her hair accessories. She had a headband that looked like hair extensions and was really pretty. And they took that away because they considered that dishonesty, manipulation, attention-seeking.
Nothing that Paris had learned growing up on New York's Upper East Side prepared her for what comes next.
She's been tackled multiple times. And then they would drag us to the observation room, a polygonal room with a steel door and a drain in the middle. And they'd leave us in there for hours and hours at a time with a vent, and the vent blew cold air, always. If we were in enough trouble, we could lose our clothes. It was terrifying and dehumanizing.
The terror of her treatment at the facility would push Paris to create a whole new persona to cope with the stress.
they already thought she was vapid, so she sort of leaned into that, and she definitely isn't. I think that's where she started to sort of play the part of the vapid sort of airhead type of a character.
We had no idea what she was masking, what she was enduring. She was essentially experiencing post-traumatic stress, and she had to mask that and create this new person.
Hi, Paris. How are you?
She went through all this trauma as like a teenager. I mean, it makes perfect sense now, right? Like, I think the stuff that she started to reveal about herself has really started to click in. Like, why was she acting so strangely? Like, what exactly was going on that made her sort of need to put like the sex so out there for the cameras?
In masking the trauma, Paris becomes a pop culture princess.
This character, the persona that we, the public, see as Paris Hilton, it was a defense mechanism.
Bye, London.
It was kind of a necessity for her to put up that persona of the bimbo. She wore blue contacts. She spoke in a really ditzy, high-pitched voice.
How was Toronto?
All right.
You get like Paris Hilton, like the sweet little baby Barbie, you know, who talks in a little baby voice. She doesn't talk like that, you know? That's not like what the real, that's a Paris Hilton character.
Merry Christmas to everyone in the world. I love you.
She was not going to let that experience define her. She was going to come out of that hurt stronger, and she created this character of Paris Hilton as an armor to protect her and not expose her vulnerable side, her real self. And it was a character that she played for a very long time, very successfully.
Paris returns from Utah a different person with a new persona. She starts modeling, but her real talent is hitting the clubs.
I was living in New York in the early 2000s, and that's when I first met Paris Hilton. It was at a fashion show. We were sitting next to each other, and she definitely wasn't very friendly towards me. She like kind of turned her back and was like combing her hair.
2 years after experiencing her own personal hell, Paris emerges stronger than ever, rising to New York's it girl status.
Formerly, you know, socialites were supposed to like maybe have your wild night out with a picture or two and then go back to like ladies' lunch with cucumber sandwiches. You weren't supposed to put your sort of loose, you know, partying lifestyle out there for the cameras. And it was like pretty clear that that was not what was going on with Paris Hilton.
New York, everyone thinks it's like, you know, this big city. It is such a small town when it comes down to like where you socialize, who you socialize with, what restaurants you go to. And if Paris is at one of those places that you were going, you knew that you were in the place to be. I'm Brandi Glanville. I'm best known for The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And I've been running around in the same circles as Paris for about 20 years now. There was a lot of drugs around. There was a lot of beautiful models. There was a lot of famous people. And it was the same group everywhere you went. We knew when Paris was coming in because you would see all of the flash bulbs outside going crazy. Inside the club, you would see the windows, and it was like somebody big is coming in. And it was generally Paris.
But being New York's most sought-after celebutante wasn't going to be the only stop on her fame tour. Paris sets her sights on bigger plans and moves the party west to Hollywood.
She was hungry. You know, she was definitely hungry. You know, she loved cameras. She loved fame. She loved paparazzi. She wanted even more fame.
Hi, Paris.
Still just in her early 20s, Paris Hilton makes a name for herself in LA's elite party circuit.
Paris loved to party so much that she turned her house in Los Angeles into a club. I'm celebrity blogger Perez Hilton, and somebody who's known and been friends with Paris Hilton for 20 years. Her house used to have a stripper pole. her house was always the place that you would go to for after hours. Because in Los Angeles, in the early 2000s, all of the bars and clubs closed at 2 a.m. So after that, everybody would go to Paris's house. She lived very centrally in West Hollywood, and some really big celebrities would be there. Jared Leto, Courtney Love, all the young Hollywood types.
All she wanted was love.
Paris is already famous for being famous, but behind the scenes, she begins making sure that cameras can always find her.
So when I first met Paris Hilton many, many years ago, you're talking about in the early 2000s, and I basically looked in her face and I said, whatever you need when it comes to camera, media, paparazzi, I'm your guy. I'm going to be that guy that documents everything. And our relationship was born right there in that meeting.
It's the world of paparazzi, gossip rags, and up-and-coming sites like TMZ, all hungry for celeb content.
It was also a different culture in Los Angeles because the early 2000s was that era prior to the mass explosion of social media. There was no Instagram. So there were hordes of paparazzi in Los Angeles. It was a booming industry, and Paris was one of their biggest targets, although she was a target that happily played along.
Thank you, Paris.
I was running one of the largest paparazzi companies in Hollywood, and the number one demand that would come from our offices is we want more footage of Paris Hilton. From TMZ to Entertainment Tonight to The Insider, everybody wanted Paris Hilton. She was the star. My name is Shiraz Hassan. My business is to make people famous. I've worked with Paris Hilton for over 2 decades. You know, there are 2 ways that people look at paparazzi. Some people like, oh my God, I don't want paparazzi. But the smart celebrities that understand that this is the business of fame. I broke it down to Paris Hilton very simply, that the more fame, the more money. And if I can have a team around you that's working with you directly, and we know where you're going, what you're doing, what you're wearing, what club you're going to, what restaurant, it's going to make it a lot more easier, and it's going to be a lot more safer, and we can control the content.
We have a deal, guys, yeah? Yeah, let's go. Thank you, my friends. Thank you, gentlemen.
No one understands how to play the game better than Paris. She even develops a system to keep the Paris fame train running.
So Paris would tell me, I'm going here, I'm doing this, you need to deal with my assistant, Kim Kardashian. And it was a very successful formula.
She is a rich heiress who changed the culture in terms of what a wealthy woman would do in front of a camera, how to control paparazzi, how to almost be like Princess Di-esque in the way she would talk to the press, manipulate the press, get herself in the papers. She was an it girl who was not just an object. Paris sort of said, I can be both of these things. I can be an object who you ogle and who you think is pretty, and I can be the subject who behind the scenes is my own best publicist. I can manipulate the press and make sure they write things about me and go viral 20 years before anybody else was figuring out this game. And that was sort of her thing.
Okay, thank you, Paris. Thank you, Paris.
And she loved it too. That's why her it girl phase lasted as long as it did. She really exploded in a mass way.
All Paris's hard work to make sure a camera always finds her pays off. She signs a deal with Fox to star in a brand new kind of TV show. It's called The Simple Life, and she begins filming in the spring of 2003.
Where the hell are we?
I met Paris Hilton because I was a reporter for Rolling Stone, and she was going to be a big star from The Simple Life. We just thought we would do a story on her.
Vanessa, take 1, A and B, Mark.
My name is Vanessa Grigoriadis. I'm a writer and a podcaster. So I flew to LA. I was supposed to meet her at this sushi restaurant. And the publicist for Paris called me and said, hey, can you drive her home afterwards? And I was like, I will never forget this moment because I was like, I can definitely drive Paris Hilton home. Like, yes. So I get there, and Paris Hilton loves like a mouthy bitch. Like, she's like, you're a mouthy bitch who's got bad things to say about other people. Come sit next to me. I want to make some jokes with you.
Getting any access to Paris is a reporter's dream, but this kind of access is a pinch-me moment.
And then we went to a nightclub, and I remember her pushing me in front of her in the club because it was like a crowded club. And she wanted to like part the ways so we could walk faster. And she was like, my friend is pregnant, my friend is pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. We're there with Tara Reid, and there's like a time where they go to the bathroom for like a really long time. And they come back, and Paris Hilton's like, I just want to tell you, like, I'm the kind of person where like I see a shooting star in the sky. Like, I tell all of my friends, come see the shooting star. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what you guys were doing in that bathroom, but awesome. She loves to dance, she's really into techno, and she's really into making jokes and playing sexy. She's comfortable wherever she goes. Like, she doesn't care. And I remember her saying to me, like, my boyfriends always tell me that I'm sexy, but I'm not sexual. And I always thought, like, that's so strange. What a strange thing to say.
The night goes on, much to the dismay of Paris's publicist.
The next day, I get a call from a very confused and irate publicist who's like, I hear you went out all night with Paris? And I was like, well, you asked me to give her a ride. Like, sorry. I said, well, when am I going to see her today? And they were like, you're not going to see her. And I was like, but I still have questions for her. And she was like, I'll call you back. So she called me back, and she says, you can meet up with Paris at Kyle Richards' house, like, in a couple days.
Aunt Kyle, otherwise known as Real Housewives of Beverly Hills star Kyle Richards. This was way before she was ever on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She was just Paris's aunt, who was not that much older and would always come party with us.
So I go over to Kyle Richards' house. Paris is there. She's like much chastened. And so she gives me like a bunch of like very boring sound bites, and she looks really, really sad. Like everybody's very on edge.
Unaware of what's going on, Vanessa had just walked in on one of the darkest days in Paris's life.
Like, what's the big deal? And then like within days, the sex tape came out.
As a teenager, Paris and her then boyfriend Rick Solomon made a sex tape.
Back in 2004, it wasn't common for socialites or reality stars or celebrities to release sex tapes, so it got a ton of attention. Paris did it before Kim.
But Paris alleges she was under the influence of pills and booze at the time, and when Solomon releases the sex tape for a sneak peek online in 2003, just months before The Simple Life premieres, the media goes crazy, and Paris's most intimate moments are out there for the world to see.
I'm not gonna lie and pretend I did not see the Paris Hilton sex tape. It was officially released. You know, it wasn't a leak. It was one night in Paris. And my reaction was cringe. It was embarrassing to watch.
The sex tape was a very horrific time that happened in Paris Hilton's life. And unfortunately, she got her heart broken to pieces.
I just felt so betrayed.
There is no question that she did not release that sex tape. She did not want it released.
They took her to task.
With the sex tape release, the media attention Paris so skillfully used to build herself up is now tearing her down.
Paris! When the sex tape came out, the media and the general public viewed Paris as this wild child, which she was. She was this character of Paris Hilton, party girl, the wild child, playing into the dumb blonde character and nailed it.
Looking back on that experience, what have we learned? What can you tell us? What's different about you going forward as you look back?
The media is what made Paris famous, but they weren't nice to her. I definitely believe there were people that thought that Paris made this tape for more attention. But let's be clear, did she need any more attention than she already had?
She took really the brunt of the problems in the culture around women's sexuality. She felt that anvil fall on her.
Sensationalist headlines, juicy reporting and coverage, opinionated takes on the news, they get clicks. I'm not saying it was right that Paris was slut-shamed. I'm just trying to give some context. I probably was guilty of that kind of coverage for Paris as well.
There was a lot of shaming going on at that time. They took her to task. I mean, for the first time ever, you see Paris hiding her face and not wanting to be asked questions and not wanting to talk to the media. And that was her whole, life before. David Letterman and Jay Leno all making jokes about this teenage girl who was abused, and they're making jokes about her every night on television.
These sex videotapes are all over the internet. How many of you have seen them? I've seen them. I don't know, she seems like a very personable young woman.
While Paris is reeling from the shame of the sex tape, she has to put on a brave face as her TV show The Simple Life finally premieres.
The Simple Life was a monster hit when people used to watch television in droves. It got huge ratings. The kind of numbers that today you don't see anymore.
It takes Paris's career to a whole new, unexpected level. The Simple Life stars Paris and another Nepo baby, Nicole Richie, playing themselves. It's the birth of a whole new genre of television. They call it reality TV. But the truth is, there's very little about it that's real. Paris is playing a part she thinks the world wants to see.
And you're going to turn around and wash all this over into these grates.
I've never worked like this in my life.
Nobody could believe that this socialite had been put in this place in the boondocks and didn't know what a box store was or price of milk.
I think this town doesn't know what hit them.
The Simple Life is a ratings bonanza. Millions are glued to the tube to see Paris's next move, her fame status intact.
She was a spoiled rich girl. We wanted to see a spoiled brat doing manual labor.
The world was watching. They saw her every move. Her career just went bigger and bigger and bigger.
Paris Hilton has become a brand. She begins capitalizing on it. Book deals come flying at her, modeling contracts galore, cameos on the big screen in Hollywood.
Hey, Derek. You rule.
Thanks, Paris. I appreciate that.
And she even launches her own perfume brand. But as her star reaches its pinnacle, whispers of her sex tape scandal become a roar, and the media goes after her harder.
Her poor parents. Can you imagine how they must have felt, Paris Hilton's parents, that she did a porno film in a Marriott hotel? I mean, it is just...
The cameras are drawn to her, people are drawn to her like moth to flame. But there was something about being desperate for respect and mainstream respect. She wanted everybody to look at her as this perfect celebutante. But that's not who she is.
After 3 very successful seasons of The Simple Life, the dynamic duo part ways. Paris's pestering sex tape causes a massive rift between her and Nicole Richie. And once again, the media has a field day tearing Paris apart.
Here they saw this young, wealthy socialite who was branded as like this reckless party girl.
But Paris isn't recklessly partying alone.
I'm Joy Saha. I wrote an article titled The Triumph of the Bimbo Summit, which looks back at the 15-year anniversary of the infamous New York Post cover story. In 2006, the New York Post ran the headline, The Bimbo Summit. There was a cover photo of Paris Hilton Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan crammed in the backseat of Paris's Mercedes. There was the actress, the singer, and then the socialite.
When you have three of the biggest stars in the world, Britney Spears, #1, Lindsay Lohan, top of the news, and now Paris Hilton, together in a shot, in a car, partying together, I knew that's not going to happen again. That was definitely a historic moment in pop culture.
Where's the Mercedes?
They also all kind of fit into this like dumb, ditzy, foolish, silly, airheaded stereotype. All three of them were kind of seen as the anti-role models, I guess you could say.
While the outside world is trying to take her down, Paris's status as it girl is also being challenged within her inner circle.
Paris Hilton was the first influencer. The first. Everyone else followed, including Kim Kardashian.
Can I get a picture with you? Thank you. I love your song. Thank you.
I mean, she's traveling the world as Paris Hilton's assistant on private jets, and wherever Paris Hilton lands, it's royalty. And Kim Kardashian saw that. Kim wanted more.
And her brazen hunger doesn't stop there.
Kim Kardashian was telling me, Shiraz, can you make sure that your team shoots the cameras wider? I'm cut off. Half my head is in this photo, or my arm is in this photo. Please, can you instruct your team to show me in the pictures so I get the coverage? I want to be like Paris.
Like, there's no question that Paris was the professor, Kim was the student.
So we then started working with Kim Kardashian from that moment. She went from Paris Hilton's assistant holding a handbag to sharing the same airtime across the world, #1 show in America, which was Entertainment Tonight, which then gave her even more fame. And that's when Paris could see that, oh my God, why are they focusing on Kim Kardashian? Her role was an assistant. It wasn't to be famous.
That was the moment that Paris was done with her.
By the way, Paris Hilton didn't hold me back once. She was extremely classy. She basically said to me, no problem. You can film whichever stars you want, Shiraz. Just stay loyal to me.
Paris! Lovely to see you, Paris! Between her character assassination, the split with her longtime assistant Kim Kardashian, and her never-ending desire for adoring fans, Paris plunges into a downward spiral, but doesn't hit rock bottom quite yet until...
The night that Paris Hilton got arrested for her DUI, I was with her. I think that night we were at an event, and I did not see her drink a lot. Maybe one margarita is all it takes for Paris Hilton to get busted for DUI.
At the time when she was arrested, I was there. I'll never forget, on Sunset Boulevard. The whole world is watching Paris Hilton on the biggest news channels in the world.
In spring 2007, Paris is sentenced for violating her probation. She's ordered to spend 45 days behind bars.
The ruling comes just one day after her early release. She was taken from the court, screaming and crying.
She essentially had been in jail in so many ways because of the residential facility and what that's like. I can only imagine had to have been going through her mind was being back in a very similar situation and the trauma that must have brought on.
As Paris struggles through her darkest days and nights, The Simple Life is canceled as ratings sag. The network blames her legal problems. Meanwhile, her former assistant's new series premieres to rave reviews.
Probably, to be honest, she was far more hurt from the fact that Kim Kardashian totally eclipsed her and became much, much more famous than what gets written about her on the cover of the New York Post. It was sort of touch and go, is she really gonna have staying power? Is she just gonna be one of these one-hit wonders? Remember that girl who had the sex tape?
Ready? Let's get to his job.
Paris entered the new millennium as the it girl, who turned being a partying socialite into mega stardom. By the end of the 2000s, she's been knocked down and humbled. And she's got a rap sheet that will follow her forever.
Paris looked great in her mugshot, iconic.
But the public still can't get enough of Paris's downfall.
For me, as somebody who covered Paris and covered celebrity during that time, Paris gave me a lot of material. Whether it be drama that happened at a club, whether it be her getting arrested, or her getting arrested again, or Paris being sent to jail, Paris being released from jail. It was pandemonium.
Paris Hilton, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give her a round of applause. Drunk driving. What? Yeah. First of all, she's an heiress. Doesn't she have a driver?
She's an heiress and an airhead.
Yeah.
You know, she was getting more publicity, she was getting more airtime, more coverage than some of the biggest stars in the world.
You're making the fans happy, Paris.
I love you, Paris.
For Paris, you know, this was extremely painful, personally, but it also took her fame 100x. Whether it was good PR or bad PR, it drove the machine of Paris Hilton even bigger. So, you know, there is no fame without pain.
Thank you, Paris.
Paris retreats from the limelight to focus on building her empire. Perfume and beauty products, sunglasses, a motorcycle racing team in Spain.
Paris is a person who comes alive at night, who has a lot of energy, where it's like just like sort of spraying out like a firework kind of level of energy, and who has a million creative ideas.
Hey guys, welcome to Cooking with Paris.
She's just very driven, very hungry, and an extremely smart businesswoman. She's running a multi-billion-dollar empire. That's Paris Hilton.
It's a huge, heavy lifting task to keep that up for as long as she has. And she's been able to do that by her work ethic and reinventing over the years.
She continues to find ways to channel her creativity, reviving her passion for music that goes back to 2006.
There were many times, actually, that I would party with Paris in Vegas, and everywhere that Paris went in Vegas during that era, she would always take a CD with her. And that CD had her album featuring the now iconic song Stars Are Blind on it. It was her music. And she would have the CD and give it to the DJ at whatever club we would go to. Ask them to play her songs, plural, and she would sing over it. And it was just so funny and fun.
Her single, Stars Are Blind, debuts at 18 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 and even earns props from music critics.
I live in Vegas now, and the market is very different here. It's not the cast of Vanderpump Rules hosting at a club anymore. It's this big DJ or that big DJ. But interestingly, Paris is now a big DJ. Amongst her reinvention, one of the many things that she's done is she's learned how to DJ, and she does that as well. And she plays big festivals, big venues.
From Coachella to Dubai, at $1 million a show, Paris is now one of the highest paid female DJs in the world.
She is very savvy. And I think now we're really, as a society, able to see she really is smart.
Maybe she isn't as educated as you would expect somebody with like that family pedigree, but she's clever and she's canny and she's creative, you know, which is part of why I think she survived.
I tell my story not so that anyone feels bad for me, but to shine a light on the reality of what happened then and is still happening now.
Good on you,
Oh, yeah. Stephanie. Thank you, Paris.
Paris Hilton could have just been a forgotten name. She could have just been forever known as like this reckless party girl, as this ridiculous reality TV star who came from so much immense wealth and privilege. But she didn't let that happen for her.
I'm never going to get my childhood back. But some of these children are losing their futures too.
She wanted to set her story straight.
No longer silencing herself, Paris Hilton speaks out about her teenage experience in Utah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Good morning. Today I come here not as Paris Hilton, but as a survivor.
I'm Kim Noxted. I'm a senior fellow at the Century Foundation and run the Disability Economic Justice Collaborative. I work in disability policy to raise awareness around residential treatment facilities. I think the reaction around DC when Paris Hilton showed up was, at first, shock. So many celebrities come to Washington, D.C. raising awareness about something they care about. She's not only raising awareness, she's actually experienced it, and that's a whole new added layer that really elevates it.
Every day in America, children in residential facilities are being physically, emotionally, and sexually abused by those responsible for their care.
Paris has done a great deal to raise awareness on these residential facilities, as well as seclusion and restraint. So she has come to the U.S. Capitol to tell her story.
I tell my story not so that anyone feels bad for me, but to shine a light on the reality of what happened then and is still happening now.
She met with many, many members of Congress. She held a rally, and she's put her name on actual federal legislation.
This is a woman I've worked with for almost 2 decades. And never once she spoke about it. She didn't talk about it, and she's now made it her mission.
I urge Congress and President Biden to make this bill the law of the land and give young people in congregate care the rights and protections they so desperately need and deserve.
Paris is taking on a new identity as an activist in D.C., stepping into a new kind of spotlight.
When you go so raw and you open up about something that could be our own family members that are going to these schools or private schools or places like this and not knowing what kind of abuse is happening, she's using her platform now of pain, abuse, of everything she went through to try and change laws. I think for me, it's a blessing that she's using her fame for good.
She's really matured, is married, has a child, is the successful business person, and is viewed very differently than she was 20 years ago. I have to give Paris and her team a lot of credit and a round of applause because they have so skillfully rebranded her over just the last few years. Now, I think people are seeing her evolved.
I'll just be normal. Sorry, I'm so used to playing a character that it's hard for me to be normal.
But she still wants to do what she wants to do. She's still gonna get her way. I mean, what the hell? She's Paris Hilton.
Now in her 40s and in the second act of her life, Paris is determined to live her happily ever after.
I think today, right now, Paris Hilton is very peaceful. She's very happy. She's gone through the bad, the rough, to get to the good. Because pain taught her what she wants and what she doesn't want. Her husband, Carter, she literally has made him her Prince Charming. She's a mother today, which was one of her biggest dreams. We would always discuss this, me and Paris, is your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back. And Paris is really living by that.
Along with her every move, now those of her family are under the glare of the spotlight.
Lahaina is just completely burned to the ground. And it's not 100% clear that you should really go vacation there. And these pictures come out of Paris Hilton and her baby and her husband on the beach, and they're just enjoying themselves in Maui. Even after all her evolution and her image management, the truth is that I think when you pull away all of the masks, Paris Hilton is going to do what Paris Hilton wants to do. She's gonna go to the beach in Maui right after, the fires. And it's not like her intentions aren't good.
Still, to this day, if I write anything even remotely critical about Paris Hilton, she will reach out to me. Not that long ago, she reached out to me, upset over my coverage of her being in Hawaii while the wildfires there were happening. And she's Paris Hilton. Nobody will be ever able to take that away from her.
By like sort of being more authentic, she has entered like the realm of the Meghan Markles, the Oprahs, like people who are one name, you know, superstars again. And I think that Paris really vibes best with young adult women, like women who are just stepping into like their power, trying to understand where they fit. Like she's just that expression beginner's mind is sort of, that's what Paris Hilton really is. Like she embodies this ability to look at things in a totally new way. And she's really fascinated by women that age and how to help them.
Oh my God, I miss you. So beautiful. I'm so happy to see you. Happy to see you, girl.
Paris Hilton is this icon of redemption. This story is all about her taking control of her own story.
As Paris takes her trauma and heals from it, she uses her old school influence to touch a new crop of adoring fans.
I think Gen Zers can definitely tell when someone is not being genuine, is not really true to themselves, and I don't get that from her. In my eyes, she's seen as a symbol of empowerment and also a symbol of hope. And she was and still is an icon to me.
She's got so many different faces that she puts on for the camera, but that one, that essential one who is who she really is, I think like is just always going to be irresistible to people. I just don't think we should like lose the essential part of Paris that made her historic. Lots of people are, you know, traumatized in their childhood as well, but she took that and sort of did something with it.
Over her 20-year career, Paris Hilton has built herself up, been knocked down, and built herself up again.
What is Paris Hilton doing right now? Exactly what she did 20 years ago. Let's reinvent the game.
And the public has never stopped watching.
I would say, you know, she and I have a lot of bickering over the 20 years of friendship. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of love there as well. I genuinely have